The United States is undergoing rapid social change, political transformation, and unrest. Just like a well-constructed house doesn't collapse overnight, but rather fades and weakens over time, the U.S. today shows signs of decline when compared to its position in the 1990s. These changes are visible in many areas of society, particularly in politics. In 2017, the Republican Party's majority leader in the House of Representatives was wounded in an attack alongside 4 others. 4 years later, in 2021, an armed group stormed the Capitol in an effort to stop the newly elected president, Joe Biden, from taking office. In 2024, during the presidential campaign, 2 assassination attempts were made on Republican candidate Donald Trump. Additionally, other politicians have also faced threats. The upcoming November election is widely seen as crucial for modern U.S. history, and no matter who wins, the country faces serious risks. Experts highlight numerous factors driving changes in the U.S., including increasing disenchantment with the nation's democratic institutions, which many perceive as losing influence. The lack of government assistance for the poor is another contributing factor. Some individuals place the blame for these issues on Donald Trump and his party. While these points are important, they do not fully capture the core problem in America. The most significant threats facing the nation are not due to uncontrollable technology, extremist armed groups, or economic complaint. Even Donald Trump is not to blame for the fundamental issues. Rather, he serves as a symbol reflecting the social needs of the country. The primary concern in America revolves around the questions of who truly owns the nation and who has the right to be considered an American citizen. These discussions are rarely highlighted in media, yet they represent the greatest challenge confronting the country. A recent study by the University of Chicago revealed that tens of millions from both the Democratic and Republican parties, as well as those not affiliated with either, believe political violence in the U.S. is acceptable and justified. Most of these individuals are well-educated, financially stable, and live in comfortable homes. Their support for political violence arises from the belief that they can only achieve their rights through such means. Democrats may justify violence against Trump, while Republicans may feel it is justified for Joe Biden and his party to lose their influence. These Americans inhabit a country admired by much of the global South for its advancements in technology and wealth. Yet, they find themselves embroiled in political tensions that the rest of the world has grown weary of. As mentioned, they perceive themselves as fighting for their survival and the future of their nation. The white population, which once viewed itself as the majority in America, is now shrinking. Census data indicates that the white population continues to decline each year, which is at the root of much unrest. Different people interpret the reasons for this decline in various ways. Some attribute it to politicians, others to the public, and some link it to U.S. foreign policy. At the core of these concerns lies the anxiety about the future felt by those who identify as white Americans. In the 1990s, 76% of the U.S. population identified as white. By 2023, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that this figure had dropped to 58%. Projections suggest that by 2035, the white population will decline to 54%, and between 2045 and 2050, it is expected to fall below 50%. This rapid decrease in the white population has led to social anger and increased support for politicians like Donald Trump, as well as for even more extreme figures. Those who see themselves as the rightful owners of America view Trump as their savior, feeling they are losing their country. The social changes within the nation are creating significant fear. The most unfortunate individuals in this scenario may be the non-white Americans who recently gained citizenship and support Trump. The groups represented by Trump and these newly naturalized citizens are vastly different and struggle to coexist. The U.S. no longer has the ability to address or limit these societal changes. Laws banning abortions have ignited political turmoil and social protests. Washington has indicated that this matter will be left to the state. The Republican Party, perceiving itself as the rightful owner of the country, views these abortion laws as unacceptable mistakes. The nation, which aims to increase the white population, has initiated projects designed to prevent abortion. It's important to clarify that the term white people here does not simply refer to individuals with light skin. There are light-skinned individuals who are not classified as white. In America, whiteness encompasses a person's heritage and origin. People of European descent are considered white, as are those who speak Spanish. In summary, a person without a Western cultural background is not included in the white population of America. This distinction is intertwined with the country's historical context and the identity of its founder. As societal change cannot be reversed, no matter who is elected, the U.S. is heading toward a period marked by political violence, assassinations, conspiracies, and deep social division. Similar patterns of violence have been observed throughout American history. In the early 1920s, the United States experienced a significant influx of Catholic refugees from Europe, and the Protestant population responded with attacks, killings, and kidnappings against them. Although visually white, these Catholic refugees faced hostility due to their religious belief. Historical records indicate that millions joined nativist movements and groups like the Ku Klux Klan, which promoted white supremacy. These groups organized and launched assaults against Black individuals, Jews, and Catholic refugees who had fled to the United States. During the 1960s and 1970s, the country grappled with major political assassinations and riots in several cities, predominantly fueled by far-right extremists and white supremacist groups. These violent events have been extensively documented and serve as a reflection of the social climate in America at that time. Between the 1980s and 1990s, the U.S. faced intense attacks, including the 1995 Oklahoma City federal building bombing, which resulted in the deaths of 168 people and injuries to 600 others. This attack was carried out by individuals affiliated with far-right extremist groups. One of the perpetrators cited his hatred for the U.S. government as the motive for the bombing, using past incidents as justification for his action. This act was officially recorded as domestic terrorism. Today, the U.S. appears to be showing signs of a similar resurgence in violence. According to statistics from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security, the number of terrorist attacks in the country surged by 400% between 2017 and 2023. The killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police in 2020 sparked protests from more than 15 million people against deep-seated racism in America, particularly towards non-white individuals, especially Black people, and police brutality. These protests escalated into large-scale riots and looting across numerous American cities, including Chicago, Minneapolis, New York City, Philadelphia, and Seattle, marking the largest social uprising in the U.S. since the 1960s. 6 months after these protests, the January 6th Capitol attack occurred. By the end of 2023 and into June 2024, students protesting the U.S. policies towards Israel-occupied university building, demanding the cessation of university cooperation with Israel, which resulted in a months-long standoff and drew commentary from national leaders. Public opinion polls indicate that Americans, particularly those under 59, are increasingly viewing violence as a viable solution to political issues. In contrast, those over 59 generally do not consider political violence an acceptable means of achieving change. By 2045, it is projected that non-white individuals will outnumber white individuals in the United States, a demographic shift that will affect all 50 states and significantly alter the nation's overall character. This presents a precarious and unstable situation, especially as the younger generation currently perceives violence and firearms as tools for effecting change. As this demographic transition unfolds, the younger generation is expected to become the minority by then. Prior to 2045, this shift is anticipated to manifest in the political landscape, leading to increased conflicts and violence. Already, a quarter of the members of the House and Senate in 2024 identify as non-white, marking one of the most significant changes in American history. The historical transition in America is gradually becoming apparent across politics, media, institutions, and the business world. The 2024 election, featuring Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, is viewed as a crucial event for both America and the world. Trump's supporters regard this election as a last opportunity to preserve America, believing that losing would plunge the country into an irreversible decline. This sentiment is encapsulated in their slogan, "Make America Great Again," which essentially conveys that if any restoration is needed, it is America that must be fixed. Historically, demographic changes often incite fear, violence, and conflict when a smaller group finds itself outnumbered. Those in the minority frequently fear losing their homes and jobs, leading to violence in various nations, including Brazil, Lebanon, the Balkans, and parts of the former Soviet Union. Research into Donald Trump's rapid rise during the 2015-2016 election cycle revealed that his surge was fueled by concerns about changing demographics in America, concerns he amplified through his rhetoric. A recent study conducted in January 2024 found that Americans who believe the Democratic Party is trying to import voters from the Third World to secure future elections are 6 times more likely to support Trump's return to power, even if it requires force. Many of these individuals view the January 6th Capitol rioters as patriots deeply invested in their country's future. A significant number of American citizens hold the belief that the influx of refugees into the country is part of a deliberate political agenda, suggesting that these refugees are intentionally allowed entry. They accuse the Democrats of planning to quickly grant these refugees legal status to secure them as future voters. This is perceived not just as a short-term strategy for the upcoming 4 years, but as a long-term approach crucial for the Democratic Party's survival. White Americans, fearing becoming a minority, view this influx of refugees as an aspect of a political agenda that must be halted. Consequently, Trump has pledged that, if elected, he will deport all illegal immigrants immediately. This situation is seen as a potential flashpoint. If Trump is elected and attempts to carry out such a mass deportation initiative, it would be met with significant resistance. Democrats would likely not remain passive. They would raise human rights concerns and mobilize large-scale protests in cities nationwide, seeking to sway public opinion against Trump's policy. Democratic-controlled states would likely refuse to cooperate with the federal government on deportation efforts, as these immigrants arrived during their tenure. This refusal would lead to a conflict between the federal government and Democratic states, compelling Trump to deploy federal police, while his far-right supporters would counter the protests organized by Democrats. Ultimately, the U.S. could become embroiled in fierce disputes over immigration and the societal integration of these individuals. If Trump were to lose and Kamala Harris were to win, the situation for refugees would likely not improve. This outcome could trigger a resurgence of racial tensions reminiscent of the 1960s, with racist groups becoming more active. Refugees might find themselves increasingly targeted, facing threats that would resonate deeply with societal fears. Supporters of Trump, feeling defeated, could view refugees as the ones poised to take over the nation, escalating their anxieties about the future and the well-being of their children. In summary, America is in the midst of a significant social transformation, with the potential for dramatic escalation due to the refugee issue. Both of the country's major political parties are engaged in a fierce battle over the future of these refugees.